I mean, I was asked for my opinions. It's my opinion. You don't have to agree with me. Okay? Now, coming from the man's point of view, right? I can say that a lot of men expect women to behave in a particular way, right? And women maybe these days don't behave in that kind of in that pattern or in the way that is expected. So there's a lot of frustration in their marriages. And this case study from Nigeria is saying most of this divorce application is within the first year. Now you have to know that the first year is a very, very difficult year because basically marriage is not easy. For if anyone asks me, I would say for marriage, any marriage to work here, it's not God. It's not just about, I mean, God plays a good factor. But when I say God, I mean faith, your belief. But what keeps a marriage going is that you have two reasonable people come together. Now, if you have one reasonable person in the marriage, potentially it's not going to work. Because what you're going to have is one unreasonable person and one reasonable person. The reasonable person will always have to take a step back and endure and bear. Now, it will get to a point where the reasonable person can't endure anymore. And when they can't endure anymore, everything explodes. So you need two reasonable people in the relationship to make it work. Just like a business, you come together to do a business, and you have to be able to reason with each other. Otherwise, the business will crash. People will take off with their dividends and stuff like that and start their own business. So for marriage to work, you need two very reasonable people in it. Now, if people are expecting the kind of marriages their fathers had and their mothers have, like it will shock you that things have changed. And we need to understand that things have changed a lot. As a teenager growing up, I had the opportunity to speak with a lot of elderly people, especially women. So I was about the age of 18 years old, and I spoke to women in their 50s and their 60s and their 70s. And it was interesting how from outside you saw them having the perfect marriage that you wanted to grow up to become. But these women sounded really bitter and angry. They sounded like if they had the opportunity, they would have made different choices, like, wasted life and stuff like that. But then it was down to the generation that they lived in. Now, back in the day, we cite a lot of examples that marriages worked back in the days. Back in the days, women, it was like a taboo to actually leave your husband's house or say you didn't want to do it. So you had to stick in there whether you liked it or not. Now, I'm not saying that there was no one that didn't have a good marriage. There were good marriages, but I'm saying that you didn't have as much separations or divorces back then because you literally couldn't go. You had to endure it. In today's time, women are not going to endure like their mothers did because, first of all, their mothers told them they saw a lot of things growing up with their mothers. They heard a lot of stories. So they're not going to repeat it. They're not going to stay with anyone and suffer when they have the opportunity to leave. Now, why is it easier these days for women to leave? You have to also understand that back in the days, women were potentially completely and 100% dependent on men. So if you were going to leave, where are you leaving to? To your father, to your brothers, who potentially your husband was the one that was catering for their needs and stuff like that. Where are you going to go? Back to your village? You had to stay there. There's no choice. Today you have independent women that have jobs, that have careers, that have all that. So if things are not good, they leave. They leave because they're not going to stay there and try to make something work that's not going to work. If two people are being unreasonable, then you're trying to patch it in there. It's going to explode at some point. So that's the difference. They have a choice now. Both men and women have a choice now. You understand? Back then, the choice men had was to either come up with a story, kick the wife out and get a second wife, or just become a polygamist. But now it's different. Like, why do you want to spend your life eternity with a horrible woman when you can just divorce her and get on with it? Yeah, it sounds sad, but that's the truth of the matter. Things have changed. You understand? Coming from the other point of view, you can also say they don't make women like they used to. Yeah, women were more humble back then, like I said, yeah, potentially they were more humble back then. But the truth is, they didn't have a choice back then. So they had to do what they were told. They had to comply. That's why you find grandmothers and they're just horrible. Yeah, you think like, they've been together for 50, 60 years. Why are they like this? They were never happy. And you have to understand that the heart of a woman is really deep. It's really, really deep. I'm not saying men don't have deep heart. I'm not a man, so I don't know. A man would be the best person to say that. But coming from a woman's point of view, like we have... this thing, shock absorbers in cars, our own is like on a different level. So a woman can take it and take it and take it and take it. She can keep secrets forever. You can't get in there. A woman can live with a man 50, 60 years. You understand? And on her dying bed, she can speak the truth. And you think 60 years later, they don't make marriages like they used to before. Do you really know what marriages were like? The only reason you're seeing a lot of divorce cases now is not so much about, there's an element of people have changed. There's an element of women empowerment and men empowerment and all that. But there's an element that we don't look at. The fact that maybe people back then were not really happy. They were stuck in it. Now, I've actually spoken to some men as well. Elderly men that are old enough to be my father and probably grandfathers. I spoke to them too. They didn't seem happy. Now, I'm not saying that that statistics is going to, cover everything, but I'm saying that don't say that they don't make marriages like they used to, because you don't know what marriages were like before. They weren't 100%. There's just so much awareness now. And the fact that people can be independent, why not? There's lots of examples of successful single fathers and single mothers, so why stay together? And I say this all the time. Some people find themselves in toxic relationships, but they stay there because they don't want to have a failed marriage. You die there inside that marriage. You get me? You die there in the marriage. But society does this to people because how can you leave the marriage when everybody's going to look at you like, here's another one that wants to be a single mother, or here's another guy that just wants to be a player and not settle down. No, you want them to die in that marriage? They should leave. You understand? Because there's some people that, I don't know, it's just impossible to live with them. They might be good people. They could be good fathers. They could be good mothers. But being a good partner is probably not something they can do. In those cases, like seriously, you have my blessing, separate. But be good parents to your children. I say this all the time, right? Children do best in a safe and loving environment, whether it's with one parent or with two. If two of you together are going to be a mess, then you better want to stay apart. Your children will actually be happier. Because that thing you think you're hiding, they can feel it, they can sense it, and it's going to affect them. Now, another reason why you're having so much breakups today is maybe they don't make men. Because we always talk about women. Like I told you, it's going to come at the men and the women. So we have potentially women who are pig-headed now, have their own career, they want to be bosses and all that. Yeah, it happens. Potentially, that's an element as well. But how about there's also the element of maybe they don't make men as they used to. Just like they don't make women as they used to. They don't make men as they used to. I give an example. Trust me, there's no man like my father. Yeah? My brothers are probably cooking. Apologies to my brothers anyway. But the truth is they don't make men like they used to. And when I say these things, it's not a general statistics for everybody. It's just like the higher percentage. When I look at my father, right, as a public servant, you understand? He went to work diligently. He was never late for work. He did all those stuff. He still came home and was able to read me bedtime stories, read the Bible, ask me about my homework, talk to me. He took my brothers and taught them how to play squash. He taught them how to play hockey. Whenever he went to cut his hair, he took them with, like father-son bonding, all that stuff. My father was born in the 30s, so he's not a this day. He was born in the 30s in his village. So he was a village boy. But he was a different kind of man. You understand? When my mom was cooking and she was tired and the food wasn't ready, he would take us out. Not for a big meal. We'll just go to Delta Park, the junction close to us. He'll buy granite and banana. I used to long for those things because he liked it. He'll get the groundnuts, the ones that are not peeled. He will peel it, and then we'll all sit down because he didn't want to give us a full meal. Because if you had a full meal, like full snacks and everything, then you don't have the space to have the meal when my mom was done. See, that's my father. He's still alive, by the way, and I love him to bits. Now, we had years when I didn't see eye to eye for my... We had years when I didn't see eye to eye with my dad, you understand, for many reasons, yeah? But in those years, as much as I was like, this man, in my heart, right, it was more like, they say there's a thin line between love and hate. The only reason I felt so bitter towards my dad was because of how much I loved him, because of the impact. And in all those years that we didn't see eye to eye, you know what I remembered? I remembered those moments as a child, when he carried me on his leg, when he read books to me, when he checked my results, when he told me to do my times table, when we sat down and watched TV together. That's what I remembered. Now, in today's time, we don't have a lot of people, and we're even the modern people. My father was born in the 30s, and that's how he was. Maybe you're looking at me like a small girl. I'm not a small girl. I'm quite mature. You understand? So, so I'm saying that you don't have that now. And today this is our awareness stage where you have books. My father did not read one single book about parenting. He didn't. He did not read that. He had so much responsibilities. He was training his half-brothers. He was training his friends' children. He was doing this and that. Everybody lived in our house to go through university and everything. Everybody lived in our house to do one thing. That's how much responsibility he had with his government salary. And he never did business one day. Now, when I say they don't make men, or a lot of men like they used to, please look around you and show me a man like my father. Now, I'm using my father because I know him personally. And I'm not trying to overblow him. Check my name. Go and find out about my father. You will know. You know what I'm saying, it's not a lie. There were so many people in that generation of the 30s where there was no internet awareness, there was no book, there was no men's fellowship, there was nothing that were like that. And I can name them. I don't want to name them. I know many of them. They were like that in that generation. In today's generation, we have people that don't have time, they're too busy, they're hustling. Which hustle? You've not even trained the house girl. I kid you not, right? The ones I know about, I can count at least 25 people my father trained from primary, secondary to university. At least 25 that I can count, that I know. Probably more than that, because I'm the youngest, so there were probably a lot. You get me? So they don't make those kind of people anymore. Yeah, conditions are hard. Conditions were always hard. You understand? He wasn't, like I said, public servant. Okay? He wasn't an oil company anybody. He was a public servant. So it's the quality of parents. You understand? Now, the other thing I want to say is, now we talked about the pig-headed women and potentially the men today that are not like the men back then, and that's why things are falling apart, because you have daughters. Okay, imagine someone who had a father that was all that, and you now get married to one guy that is not even trying. Not because of money, because people always say he doesn't have money. Not because of money, but because he just doesn't know how to give that fatherly everything like her father did, or like she was raised. That in itself is a problem. How do you teach a grown man that kind of thing? You understand? And then there are women that maybe their mothers feel them with so much hate and pain about marriage and men. You know those women that will say, make sure you get your secret account to, make sure you tell him to shut up. No man should talk to you anyhow. You know, and these mothers we're talking about, they're mothers of those days that you said had a fantastic marriage. They never left their husbands, but that's the advice they give to their children. So you have women selling hate and bitterness to their daughters. Their daughters are going into marriage with that mind of, if you talk to me and look at, shout, you know. So there lies the problem. Now the other side we're not looking at is, now if in the 40s and the 50s, and the 60s and the 70s, the parents we had then were pretending to be happy and together, you know that children can sense these things. Potentially we have a lot of today's men and women that were raised in hate, in pain and bitterness, that they've grown up to become men and women today that cannot truly love. We have a lot of people that were born and went through a lot of trauma and stress that they've come up today and they're reflecting what they saw growing up. Now, if a boy grew up in a house where his father was that kind of figure that says, shut up when I'm talking, go and sit in the kitchen. I don't care how many American movies you have watched in this generation, in your head, that's how much respect you expect to command from your woman. Now you went and married Sisi with her Brazilian, who in her house, they were like, oh baby, how are you? Hugs daddy, hugs mommy. That's the one you went for, because you didn't go for your own level. You went for that one that grew up in a sheltered place. Not even so much shelter. It's not even about wealth. It's about the way she was raised with so much love and kindness. Now, she says something in the house and you're like, my friend, do you know I'm your husband? Ah, man, marriage don't spoil you. You understand? Everything is gone downhill. So you have to understand. Someone asked me, if you could recommend something for people, recommend something to people getting married today, what would you say? I said, see, you guys are big on HIV tests. You guys are big on, what's the other one? Genotype. Yeah, they're good idea, because you don't want to marry someone who's sick, or, you know, you don't have those problems. But you know what? You really need to take it back to how we did it back in the days. When you say you want to marry, they will send people to go and investigate the family. Don't be in a hurry. Get to know the family. A man or a woman that was raised in a family that they used to hustle, everybody was trying to undo the other person, everybody was trying to prove, everybody was struggling. They may have been rich. It's not so much about poor people. They may have been rich, they may have had money. But a person that was raised in a family where there was no love, it is going to be a miracle for them to grow up to be a man or a woman that can love. Now, love is not about, I give you money. Imagine a boy that was raised in that kind of love, who understands that it's not about money. You know, money should be earned, but it's not about that. He understands that love, that caring, that everything. Then he now goes and meets one girl, anyhow girl, streetwise. You know, this one's like, yeah, you know, but she's done about Brazilian and her makeup, and then they get together. While for him, it's about spending time, for her, it's about money. For her, it's about this. It's not like he's not giving her the money, but it's not enough. Imagine a girl that grew up in an abusive home where, for her, kind of in her head, it's like women need to be spoken to in a particular way. If not, the man is weak. And this guy was raised in a family where dialogue. Let's talk about it. So when he's saying, babes, you know, I just want to have this conversation, you know, about, what's that? You know, because she's raised to confrontation. That's all she knows. That's all she knows. But if you've not been in a hurry and done your investigation, not just for the girl, but her family background, you'd have an understanding of what it is. But then again, like, two opposites can actually attract. Because if both parties are willing to be reasonable, then you can overlook certain things. Like, this person overlook the other person's character, the other one overlook, and they'll find a way, middle ground, to work together.